He is elected by ordinary people, but actually Brotherhood and Morsi, he is not democratic person. He is very
No.
harsh Islamist. And to build a new constitution, try to compress people. But he's talking, he was just like you talking, why he is supportive for democracy. But at that time, Egypt under the Morsi is not democracy.
Hmm. So it's a public secret that Morsi was Morsi supported by the
Does he have
US?
some implied as a typical British politician? So he has a true mind behind?
No. He's not a typical British politician. He is definitely different from political politicians.
My question is
much
why
more
is supportive for Morsi? It's curiosity for me.
Well, basically, so I think that his standpoint is technically correct. This is if in a democracy, the will of the people should prevail. Now, the majority of the people seem to be in favor of Morsi over Mubarak. Maybe there are things to be said about Morsi, and maybe he represents a movement which has its dark sides, but still it is the will of the people. So I think that okay, if basically we would go against the will of the people and say, okay, well, the Muslim Brotherhood is not a desired choice for Egypt, for example, then that would be very anti-democratic. That would be very hypocritical if we would intervene against the Muslim Brotherhood. So I think he's just taking the intellectual approach and supports the Arab Spring movement because it's a democratic movement and not because of the contents of the Muslim Brotherhood and their program.
Yeah, except Tunisia, every country failed for democracy
Yes.
after Arab Spring. That's the reason why Sisi made a coup against Morsi. So this historical fact, why he just talking about like that?
Well, this is actually before Sisi was made the coup. So this is what went ahead. What happened before that? So Morsi took control, and I think supported by the US. But then, just like you said, in the US they realized that this Morsi was not very democratic.
No, US never support Morsi. He is very strong Islamist, and he tried to control the people under the harsh conditions. That caused Sisi caused coup for Morsi. The election itself was democracy, but after that, nothing about democracy.
Right. So that's why it is said that the United States actually intervened to help overthrow Mubarak and then help to overthrow Morsi by supporting first Morsi and then Sisi.
That's right. So
right.
The election and itself was a big mistake for America, United States of America, and ordinary people misunderstood who Morsi is.
Right. But I think he still has a point. Okay, Morsi may not be very democratic, but it is if Egyptians have been under the rule of Mubarak for such a long time, against their will, being oppressed, and he refers to Mubarak as a dictator, which I think is actually correct. Then. In a democratic movement, and whoever it is, if we really value democracy, then should not be up to us to say, okay, well, we want democracy in the world, but not in Egypt, because if they vote for the wrong candidate, that is not very consequential. Therefore, we should not intervene. That's his standpoint. But actually, that's what happens. Is that basically everything better than Mubarak? The United States supports Morsi, and then they change their mind, and then they support Sisi because Morsi turns out to be very undemocratic.
But how come? Okay, I agree with you. The Mubarak, he is a dictatorship, the same as Gaddafi in Libya. But later, many regime changed. Then later, what happened on those areas? It's worse than Egypt under the Mubarak, worse than Libya under Gaddafi. So this fact was revealed later. So what they did actually, so getting worse, their level of life. Libya is so terrible after the Gaddafi.
Right.
This is a fact, okay. But
Right.
at that time, I agree with you. They are ordinary people. They are against Mubarak, against Gaddafi. But actually, what happened later is get more worse situation for those countries, except Tunisia. Except Tunisia.
But that happens a lot. Huh? That happens a lot in revolutions. That people go through this period where wealth and the actual situation is not getting better; it's getting worse. Like compared it, for example, with the more or less silent revolution in Russia after the communist era. A lot of people were worse off for an extended period of time. It happens a lot when after a revolution that things need to stabilize, recover, people take control, new institutions, new people. In this time of instability, a lot of people take benefit of the situation, that there is a power vacuum, and they steal from the government, from the people. So this is not uncommon, and I do think Galloway has a point that United States and Europe have been behind a lot of this instability, having created a lot of situations where they very opportunistically supported movements to suit their interests in the Middle East, not really taking the best interest of the people into their account. And I wouldn't be surprised if even the United States did not even regret the fact that they supported Morsi, but did that by design, because they already foresaw that after every revolution, there is this period of instability and economic problems, so that they could easily foresee that, okay, let's use Morsi to overthrow Mubarak and then intervene and take Morsi out. When we enter this period of economic downfall, and that's exactly how it played out. I would be surprised if that was by design, because this always happens after a revolution.
Okay, just first point is Russian Revolution is before Russian Revolution, after Revolution is actually what you said is. Level of standard get worse, but Middle East is different, right? And different. They get more worse than before revolution. And second point is we must be careful what the Middle East is. American and Westerners always thinking about destabilize for those areas. Okay, they never consider for stabilization for Middle East. Always they focus on the how to turmoil their countries, including Egypt and Libya. And they try to control those countries by themselves to get money from those areas, especially oil. And Mubarak case is America discarded to control Mubarak under the Arab Revolution, right? Maybe Mubarak did say something against America, so that's the reason he is deported.